Buenas noches. Mi nombre es Víctor Alvarez Carrizales. Soy el hijo adoptivo de la familia Carrizales. Yo no tengo la culpa que el hermano Baldomero y el hermano Joe me hayan adoptado en 1979-80. I'm going to speak in English because there's two messages, and I want to share this in English for those that, especially for the grandchildren and the younger people here. We're here today to celebrate the life of la hermana Alicia G. Carrizales. As I think of la hermana, let me share something with the Carrizales family, especially her grandchildren. Life is hard, and life ain't going to get no easier as we travel on. But you need to get a hold of this thing I'm going to share with you today. There's some things in life that you need to anchor your life on. One is faith, which is salvation. The other is hope. We have a hope, a blessed hope. The third is the scripture. My verse life scripture is Romans 8:28. All things work together for good. But I want to give you a fourth anchor. And this anchor here will keep you afloat when the devil comes to beat down on you. When you think you're not good enough. When you think you failed. When you think that you can't do it. And that is the legacy that Alicia G. Carrizales leaves you today. It is very good that she was honored today by the state legislature because she was a pioneer. She was a pioneer missionary of the fundamental Baptist movement in Texas, especially San Antonio. I began to read today and yesterday about Baptist women in general, and then Baptist women in Texas. But you know, they were never very much appreciated for all the work they've done. And the church, for the most part, has been carried by women. I don't know if you know that or not. Lottie Moon was a missionary to China. They didn't even want her to preach, and yet she gave them an ultimatum. And on and on and on you could go on about what the work women have done. Well, Alicia ranks way up there in that movement. At age 11, she attended la primera iglesia bautista fundamental mexicana. Her and her sister at age 11. A young little girl went to church to hear some hard preaching. Because that's all the preaching there was back then. Just good old hard preaching. There she was trained to be a missionary. She always told her daughter she was a missionary. Many people don't understand because we think missionaries are to a foreign field. But in essence, all of us here should be missionaries because we ought to be taking the message of Christ. And she was, and her field was the outreach ministry in an area called Kingwood, a suburb of San Antonio. She went to Kingsville, to Kingwood. She would go there with some of the ladies, some of the teenagers, because they were just teenagers, knock on doors. She landed at the house of a man named Baldomero E. Carrizales. No soft man. ¿Entiendes? No soft man. But God had a special girl. A girl of temperament that knocked on his door. Roy was sharing the story the other day with me when she went there and what she shared with him and so on. But the fact is that she got him to come to church. They would visit on Wednesday, hold a service at a mission somewhere out there. They would meet and invite those who were saved to come to church on Thursday. She was very surprised when she saw him in church. And then somebody else told me that for the most part, she never cried at funerals. But she cried at her father-in-law's funeral. You see, Baldomero E. Carrizales was her trophy of grace. When God used Alicia to reach into that Carrizales family, everything that's here today is a result of this woman being used of God to reach the Carrizales family. Just a simple little girl. Nothing weak about this woman. Some of you had the privilege to call her wife, mother, grandmother, mother-in-law, sister, and some of you just had the privilege of calling her friend. I first met her in my ordination service on July 17th, 1979. I have known the Carrizales family for over 40 years. It has been my privilege to call her. I had this joke that I fooled with her because, you know, me and Roy, nobody messes with me and Roy. We don't, we don't take it from nobody. That don't mean we're right, okay? Just so you know. Don't imitate us, you know. We're probably both wrong. But the only woman that ever got away with scolding us was Alicia Carrizales. And I call Roy my little brother only because he's smaller, because he's older than me. So we got in this habit of either not showing up for lunch, leaving early because we wanted to go to eat somewhere, or showing late, or not coming for breakfast. She's always waiting for us. And she says, ¿Dónde andan? Es que fuimos a almorzar. ¿Tendrán mucho dinero? ¿Aquí había comida? And there's a lot of truth to that because people that eat a lot out are broke. Most people that are broke is because you don't eat at home. But she always did that. And I couldn't get her off of me. So through the years I developed something, I would say. I see Brother Joe somewhere that says, ¿Es mi papá? ¿Eres mi papá? Y me hacía, she had this thing about haciendo unas muecas que nomás ella las podía hacer. Me hacía. Remember that one? Digo, mi papá. So I baptized her with this nickname, mi madrastra. Y le decía siempre, I would tell her, I said, yo soy Cinderella y usted es mi madrastra. Y ya sabes cómo la madrastra trataba a Cinderella, ¿verdad? So le decía, usted es mi madrastra. But as years passed, and especially when she began to get frail. Remember the first time I came and she was frail. I went over where she was and I called her and I said, hey, Mom. I dropped a stepmom. I said, hey, Mom. I didn't know si me entendió, no me entendió. From then on, we never knew. But the last time I saw her was at Nate's wedding, and I went especially where she was sitting. And I says, hey, Mom. She did. And to me, that means they acknowledge that she remembered. She was born in the midst of the Great Depression. 1929, 1939 was some of the hardest things for people to live or be born in that time. But as long as I knew her, she was always the same. Siempre la misma mujer. She was a great example of the grace of God. Her faithfulness to the Lord, her husband, her family, her church was always first and up front. Always first and up front. She was a woman of faith and conviction. She did not sway. She did not sway. You know, many people sway. You know, they just kind of, well, Alicia never swayed. All the time era firme y adelante, así es. She was a hard worker. She was very creative. She could make things out of nothing. She could find things that sometimes were thrown away. She could take paper plates, straws, things that were thrown away. My biggest deal was, first, every time I came, she would say, ¿Y la hermana? Well, I never brought my wife. We had 4 kids to raise. Mama had to stay at home. ¿Y la hermana? ¿Por qué no trajo la hermana? And every time, she'd get one of those things she created. Said, llévesela a la hermana. And if they went visit us, she brought some of that stuff she created. Take it to la hermana. She was always creating stuff out of nothing. Out of nothing. She could take things out of nothing. She could find things to do that would, like I say, from paper plates, straws, pieces of plastic, recycled boxes, milk cartons. And she was, esto me lo dijo, pray for Lydia, she's very sick. Lydia Rosales. I asked Lydia, I said, Lydia, tell me something about la hermana. Dijo, oh, la hermana. Dijo, era la consejera de la femenil. But really it was a combination of counselor and sergeant in arms. ¿Entiendes? I mean, tenían presidente y todo. It didn't matter. Ahí estaba la sergeant in arms. She said that sometimes when the ladies were just idle, doing nothing, Lisa said, we weren't even talking. We're just idle over there, dos, tres aquí, dos, tres allá. She'd come in, she'd say, hey, pónganse a hacer algo, y si no tienen nada que hacer, start doing something, you don't have nothing to do, go up there and talk to the visitors. She was always the first to arrive at any service or activity. And from my memory, the last one to leave. She always made sure that the ladies of the church took care of the missionary families. Always concerned about the missionary families. As I take her name and close this, you all have a legacy. Hold on to it. As I take Alicia's name, I take the A for this. All in. She was all in. I know a lot of people, I know a lot of preachers that are all in. I better stop preaching. She was all in. She was loyal to her Lord, to her husband, to her church. And Brother Joe, I added this little piece because she may already seen him up there. If not, she's going to go visit him soon. But she's going to go out there and see Manuel C. Ortiz. And she's going to tell him, fiel hasta el fin. Becky? She was an independent woman. She was independent. The fact that you didn't see her talk very much publicly, that did not mean that she was not independent-minded. That's the I. She was a woman of character, courage, and conviction. And the E stands for evangelizer. She was a soul winner. She was a soul winner. And as I close, I like to add that G. Guerra. Guerrera. Her middle name was War. She war against the devil. She war about anybody. You wanted war? Come mess with her. You were going to have war. She fought a good fight. She finished her course. Acts 20:24 says, but none of these things move me, neither I count my life dear unto myself, as that I may finish my course with joy, and the ministry which I have received of the Lord to testify of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Familia Carrizales, she leaves a legacy. When in the haze of life, in the fog of life, you lose direction, just hang on to that legacy. It'll pull you through. Because that's what legacies do. That's what legacies are for. That's why people create legacies. Y Carrizales family, Alicia was a great legacy.